Welcome back to the Magic Sponge podcast, a miracle cure for all your rugby league injury issues. I'm Brian Saney. I'm the guy behind all the NRL Physio content you see on social media. My co-host James, you are here. It's good to have you on a Sunday night, mate. We have Origin 3 coming up this week. Mate, the Broncos are back. I feel the Finns are good. You know, they cruise through this weekend, 2 points on the board. But, mate, I hate to say it. I know a lot of our listeners love to come on here and have us, cry into our microphones. But the Broncos are doing well, mate.
It's very vibey at the moment, Brian, especially I know I circulated a little video of you with Billy Slater riding on Buck the Bronco, and I was like, we're going to win the comp. This is the biggest rugby league omen I've ever seen. If Billy Slater, Queensland Origin hero and current coach, is riding Buck the Bronco around for a lap after a famous victory, I was like, oh God, we're in good shape here, mate. So that really inspired me. I felt very, very good about it. I've heard some actually really good things through the Queensland camp as well. I've heard Cam Smith has given the boys a chat recently in their camp, so that's really good to hear. I really would like to see him out of the comms box and in the coaching box on Origin night. But anyway, we'll have to settle with Cam Smith giving the boys a bit of a workover beforehand as well. And then there's a bit of a yarn, Brian, but there's a Nambour rugby league connection there as well. So in the Origin camp this week, what I've been told is a young fella by the name of Robbie Caldwell. People who were on the Sunshine Coast would know this family very, very well. They're basically Nambour rugby league royalty. So Robbie's a young guy who's been diagnosed with motor neuron disease. He's played in the same junior team as my brother. Robbie obviously went on to play first grade for Nambour Crushers for many, many years. So he's currently dealing with MND. And as you know, with MND, it's just an awful, awful progressive neurological degenerative disease. So that's a real shame for him. So apparently he had a chat to the team, the wider squad. His old man was, a 200 game player for Nambour A grade. He coached Sunshine Coast Falcons for a couple of years. His other brother, Robbie's other brother, Martin Caldwell, is a current captain coach at Nambour at the moment. He's played many, many years of Queensland Cup as well for the Falcons. So they're a really big rugby league name, I suppose. The Caldwells on the Sunshine Coast, that's for sure, particularly in Nambour Crushers. But yeah, shout out to Robbie Caldwell. I think, obviously a guy who's been given that diagnosis at a young age. It's such a terrible thing for them and as a family to have to go through. But it's really good to see that the wider Sunshine Coast and Nambour community and the rugby league community has got around them. And they've had a chat to the Maroons boys as well. So hopefully that was good inspiration as well, even though, there's some things going on there that are really, really challenging as well with Cam Munster, I guess, as well, Brian. We've just found that out through the media today. So sounds like an ambush on Wednesday night is what I'm saying. It's all the things. I think Queensland's is going to go to ground here and come out for an ambush. That's what I'm praying on anyway. I feel better than last Origin, so hopefully the boys get really up for this one, Brian. I'm very, very keen to see what we sort of present on game 3. I'm feeling better about it than game 2 though, that's for sure.
Yeah, mate, I think there's a lot of emotion rolling around in the Queensland camp at the moment. A lot of emotion. So, hopefully a lot of emotion channeled in the Queensland spirit will be the way to go. I agree. I'm definitely feeling a bit better about game 3 than game 2, but still not overly confident. On the Origin front, we have to mention the good fellas over at Baller. They have a great bet coming up for Origin 3. Young GI, Gemmet Shibasaki. Ballers placing a charity bet on him to score in Origin 3, which I think is a pretty sure thing out there at left center. So they're putting 50 cents up for every social media follow they have across all platforms. And if he does score, 100% of the winnings will go to the Mark Hughes Foundation. We all know the Beanies for Brain Cancer that's happened over the last couple of weeks. And even if he doesn't score, Baller are going to still donate on behalf of, the community, SuperCoach community, those kind of things. So look, head on over to SC Ballers on any platform. So that's SCBALLRS. So share the campaign around, get around it, because, we love Gemmet Shibasaki, the vibes around it. I'm not sure if we liked the logic behind it at the time, but we love the vibe, James, and that's the most important thing. Vibes. But it's just so good to have the Ballers on board at the moment, mate. I know I've been jumping on their website all the time, especially live during games. It's just awesome, hey.
It's definitely under my favorites tab on my Safari, Brian, when I log onto my phone and I'm just getting in between games. Going to baller.live is really, really good. Advanced stat tables, every stat you could ever want. It's all completely free. It's on the go live. I find it's a much better app to follow along scoring than the SuperCoach app. So I go there routinely rather than relying on SuperCoach. So it's really nice if you're really looking for a second set of opinion for projections as well. So even if you have SuperCoach Gold, you can get an extra set of projections. The live stats is awesome though. I'm really, really, really about it. So definitely get on baller.live. It's real good. It's good gear.
Mate, I'm hoping that the baller projections will be high for Latrell over the next 7 weeks because he looks pretty tasty. So I might be jumping on board there. But all right, guys, let's get to it. We are on YouTube, so check us out over there. Everywhere you get your podcasts, we're your one-stop shop for all things injury analysis in the NRL. You know why you're here by now. We loop it all back to Supercoach and Fantasy and help you get that edge, especially coming in a head-to-head finals. Those little point of difference plays could be the difference. Without further ado, let's get into the injury wrap for this week, which is brought to you by Pain Pod, drug-free pain relief anyone can use.
I don't know exactly what he's done. I would have thought it was an ankle, but I'm just guessing.
He shouldn't be out for a long period of time. I mean, I'm no doctor. We have to wait for the scans, obviously, but that'd be more positive than negative.
Round 18, Brian. For the HIAs this week, only one name on the list, Jack Todd from the Canterbury Bulldogs. Any update specifically to Jack there, Brian?
No, he was in the last 15 minutes, so we're not exactly sure whether he failed or passed or what happened there. So, yeah, just wanted to keep an eye out, but I assume the Dogs will be getting a fair few of their Origin guys back next week, so potentially not to affect, won't affect much.
Yeah, maybe not relevant from a team listings perspective. On the Bulldogs, we moved to the first game. Bulldogs beat Broncos. So out of this one, Jesse Arthars rib injury, which was sort of reported on pre-game, and then Corey Jensen was reported as a calf pre-game as well there. So a bit of an update there for the Broncos cavalry.
Yeah, mate. I like Jesse Arthars sounds like it was minor. Like obviously he was named and just struggled. We know rib injuries can be pretty pretty painful. So obviously it just didn't pull up well enough. I would assume he's a good chance to play next week, provided there's not a fracture there. It's just something that he'll have to keep playing through over the next 3 to 4 weeks and be at an increased risk of aggravation and those kind of things. But the Broncos do have future Dolphins immortal Selwyn Cobbo to step in there, mate, if need be. So, they shouldn't be too far down, mate. Potentially breaking news on the podcast regarding Corey Jensen. So I haven't had this confirmed yet, but I do have it on fairly good word that it's not just a calf strain and that he actually developed a blood clot, DVT, in his calf.
Goodness.
Yeah, so effectively what I had been told, and as I said, haven't had it confirmed. I've been reaching out a few different places and I got a few balls in the air to try and get confirmation on that, but so I won't go too deep into it just in case it's not right. But if effectively the story I was told is that he copped a cork, I think it was 2 weeks ago in a game, has been sore ever since. Just been treating it like a bad cork, and then they discovered this week that there was like a 10 centimeter clot in there. So if that's true, then I think the implications overall are that he's obviously goes on blood thinners. It's tough for him to travel, like air travel wise. He's going to need, at least 4 to 6 weeks out of the game, as opposed to, a week or two if it was a minor calf strain. So yeah, just something to keep an eye on there. I mean, all of a sudden the Bronx are pretty well stocked from a forward standpoint. I mean, Xavier Willison looked fantastic over the weekend. Yeah. So he's, he can just step in there. And although they did lose Ben Takura recently as well. So, I think losing Jensen, if it is, a clot and he needs 6 weeks out, I think that's a big blow to the Bronx heading into finals. But hopefully he'd be right for finals if the Bronx make it, mate. I'll say that. But it's looking pretty likely that they will. If he's out long term, mate, have you got any Broncos fandom inside word on people to keep an eye on there? I don't think there's too many that would come out of the woodworks. It'd be the usual suspects, I imagine. Hey,
no, I would, instead of someone coming out of the woodworks, I'd look for a funky thing like a 3-hooker rotation that Madge has employed earlier in the year. Would be like you'll think, oh yeah, it might do this and this and this, and you'll end up with Smoothie, Blake Moser, and also Billy Walters on the bench with Corey Paik starting or something bizarre like that. So, yeah, I don't think you can really predict how it's all going to play out, because I think Jack Gudszewski played 65 minutes the other night. So I think he he had like a fairly extended stint in there. Kobe Hetherington will probably play bigger minutes. You got Jordan Ricky obviously playing bigger minutes, and Piakura is healthy as well. So there's sort of a few more healthy bodies around there, but yeah, I don't think you can really rely on a sensible, this person will get bigger middle minutes. You might just get a hooker that plays more minutes there, would be my initial speculation, tongue in cheek. Next game, Brian, was the Raiders versus the Dragons. So Ray Faitala Mariner was with that pre-game with a back injury. Hame Sele is another name on the list again. Doesn't mind an injury, Hame Sele. Calf pre-game injury. And then lastly, Joe Tapine from the Raiders there with an ankle concern. Have we heard much in terms of severity for Joe Taps?
Yeah, so he came off, I think it was about the 20th minute or somewhere in the 20s after he was the victim of a tackle, and we'll talk about a more, I guess, prominent hip drop tackle in inverted commas with Brendan Smith later on. But this one actually got penalised from Jaden Sewer, and it was one where he did lose his feet, but he had taps his leg in between his two legs. So it was kind of like the age-old Alfie Langer. You know how he used to grab and wrap the legs around and kind of drop. So it was kind of like that. It looked like a high ankle mechanism kind of thing. But he ran off. He didn't go up into the sheds, and then he did come on with about 5 or 6 minutes to go. And I think, look, I mean, you know, without just looking at that, I think it was more that the Dragons were coming home with a wet sail, and they, like, I think the Raiders were probably like, oh, if we can sit Joey Taps for this second half, we got the bye next week, we can just, you know, give him a nice little rest. But then all of a sudden, with 5 minutes to go, you know, the Dragons are coming home hot, so they put him back on there. So I think he should be okay, but one to monitor. But with the bye next week, I just don't see him missing too much footy, if at all. Hame Sele with the calf, mate, like that poor bugger. I know I'll give him a shout out. I think he started like a YouTube channel earlier this year and was, you know, talking and it was a big build up into his first game back from a lower limb soft tissue injury, and then first game back, lower limb, another lower limb soft tissue injury. He's just had that many calf and hamstring issues over the last couple of years. It's a bit like Jordan McLean. I think we say we speak about him with these calf hamstring issues. Selly is exactly the same. So hopefully it's nothing too bad. But I just wouldn't at the moment rely on him to stay on the park for multiple weeks at a time, unfortunately. And then RFM, Faitala Mariner with the back issue, apparently it was just like soreness. So he should be fine, you'd think.
Yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed there. Next game was the Cowboys versus Storm. So Ryan Papenhuyzen ruled out pre-game with a calf concern, so that sent SuperCoaches absolutely scrambling for an extra number. Then Murray Taulagi was ruled out with a knee injury pre-game as well, so this probably explains why he wasn't selected for the Origin squad as well. I think we're all a bit perplexed at the time that he didn't get named. It sounded like he was no good after that game the previous week, so he was no shot for Origin. And then lastly, Sam McIntyre's reported as a calf injury that sounds minor in nature, Brian, I believe.
Yeah, so I think it was a bit weird in that Todd Payton sort of said, "Oh, it doesn't look good. He'll miss next week." So that kind of made, like, you know, if it was not good, I'd expect him to miss 6 weeks. So I'm still assuming it's only minor, a week or two, but we'll wait for scans to come back on that, and if the Cowboys even let us know what those scan results are, the way that they go with injury info. Murray Taulagi with the knee issue, it is minor, but as you say, probably explains or goes part of the way to explaining why he wasn't selected for Origin. The big one, mate, is Ryan Paps with the calf issue. I'll give a shout out straight off the bat to Matt from the SC Ballers. He brought in Nick Meaney off the back of this, and Nick Meaney scored 140. And I think Matt was ranked like 25th or something going in this weekend. He scored like 1,100 and something. So he might be in the top 10, which would be, there you go. Baller, really worth its weight in gold there for the advanced stats. Cause that's balls to bring in Meaney. That is for sure.
Yeah, he was cheap as well, Brian. So that's obviously like a mega cash generator and a massive score in a week where there wasn't that many. 165. Holy.
What did he update? He was 140 last time I saw.
Yeah,
so
165 is where he's at. And he's at 414K. That is good going.
That is great.
Holy
So
hell.
epic win. Now the question for Matt or for anybody, like especially Papenhuyzen owners, is could this calf injury linger? Could it affect goal kicking? The answer to both of those things is yes. Now, they've described it as tightness. So I got a lot of messages from people, and especially people in the medical world as well, who are like, the whole tightness awareness thing is like, yeah, just it feels like it's used a lot more commonly now than it used to be. Is it a minor strain? Those kind of things. I think the biggest thing with calves is that they can linger. They're less known for re-injury risk compared to hamstrings, and more known for like, oh, we expect Ryan Papenhuyzen to come back next week, but then he tries to run this week and it kind of niggles around and just holds him back enough that he can't quite get up for next week. So it's the week after, that kind of thing. They're obviously not going to rush because the Storm just keep eking out wins, right? Like they just keep winning, even in these games where they're down on troops, those kind of things. So look, I'm a Paps owner. I still think the odds are greater than not that he will play next week. I'm probably like 75% confident that he'll play next week if it truly is tightness. But there definitely is a non-zero chance that, someone like Meaney has the fullback job and the goal kicking next week. Even if Paps does play, look, if he's fit to play, he's fit to kick, because calf issues, they're really going to be talked up during sprinting, taking off, that kind of thing. So if he's able to do that, he should be able to kick. Meaney is a very capable backup though. So it just muddies the waters, I think. It's not something where I'm rushing to trade out of Paps, considering, look at what Meaney did over the weekend. He scored 160 from fullback for the Storm. So I'm holding at the moment just because I'm scared of the damage that a Paps could do to me. Even if he misses next week or he doesn't goal kick next week, he still could score 120 without if Nick Meaney didn't have the goal kicking on the weekend, he probably still scores 120. So the fullback for the Storm is still absolutely worth holding, in my opinion. Where are you at with Paps, mate? I know we've both got low trades, but say you've got, 12, 14, 15 trades. Do you think you might do a little flip to one of the other fullbacks, or are you happy to stay with him?
I think you've got to be happy to stay with Paps for the time, just because his ceiling is very, very high. And obviously the Storm, once they're through to the next week, they're through all their buys as well. So I would be holding on there to Ryan Papenhuyzen if it was me personally. I guess who would you go to would be the question. There's someone who dare I say, Tom Trbojevic, dare I say, Latrell Mitchell, but they're all guys you got to take a punt on.
And they're both on
buys, injured now, and they're both on buys as well. So you're not going to go next week. Who else is super attractive there? There's probably not too many people outside of that. I'm just trying to rack my brain for other sort of contenders.
Well, I'll put it this way. Here's a good one for you. If you don't own Teddy or Drinky and you do own Paps, would you go Paps to them? Yep.
100%. Yeah, I would. Yeah, most definitely. But outside of that, I don't know if there would be any sort of other options there apart from that.
You wouldn't go, let's go really left field. Let's say Paps doesn't play next week. Would you go Paps to KO Weeks or a Nick Meaney off the back of their high scores?
I definitely wouldn't go KO Weeks because I had him at the start of the year when he averaged 30 for me, and I've watched him score 300s in the next 8 games. I've talked about him on this podcast before. I got thirst trapped by him in the trials, remember? Like, he scored that length of field try, and I was like, this guy's in for a season. He averaged 33 for me, and I moved him on in round 7, and he's gone pretty well since then. Not sort of at keeper level stuff, but he's gone pretty reasonably. I don't know. I guess the only other sort of players that you'd probably consider, it might be Dylan Edwards' season.
Yep.
If he's backing up from Origin, I think the Panthers have got a pretty soft draw. I think he's reasonably priced at the moment. I can't remember off the top of my head where he's at, but yeah, maybe Dylan Edwards would be one that I'd consider playing. I don't look at many other teams as being that attractive. I don't see Gutho as that attractive. I don't think the Knights will have an attractive option. I look at Will Kennedy or even Hame Sele, Nick Meaney, maybe. I'd probably be happier with, probably a Dylan Edwards sort of type situation there as well. I think he could be someone that really gets hot at the back end of the season. The Panthers are going to win. So I think, and they're coming into form, dare I say it. I think everyone's sick of seeing the Panthers win, but they're getting hot at the right time again. So he might be the other one who's a bit of a smoky there, Brian.
I like it, mate. I like it. I think that's it for that game.
Yeah, sounds good, mate. Roosters v Tigers. Billy Smith was ruled out pre-game with a knee injury. Then Starford To'a was ruled as an elbow concern out of this one, Brian.
Yeah, Billy Smith, knee injury. Apparently, the Roosters think it's minor at this point. The hardest thing with Billy Smith, mate, is that things that have looked minor to start with have ended up very, very bad time and time again. So I'm always a little bit hesitant when it comes to him, but yeah, at the moment they expect him back next week or the week after. So I would expect I bought Marky Mark this week off the back of hopefully Billy Smith coming back and Mark moving back out to the wing, although he scored well this week in the centres. But yeah, hopefully back in the next week or two. And then Starford To'a, he apparently has been dealing with like an arm issue for weeks. He came into the game. A lot of people messaged me and said he's been strapped since pregame. I went back and had a look. He seemed to come back after half time with his elbow heavily strapped, and then at different times throughout the second half, his arm was hanging real low. So I don't know whether it was elbow, whether it was shoulder. There was no real clear mechanism. So it's really hard to tell. I think the fact that he stayed on till full time, if it is just an elbow, which is where he was strapped, you're probably looking at like a hyperextension or something like that he's copped in a tackle, and it's just super painful and he's going to play through it. But yeah, we're going to have to wait for more information on that because, I'm not really sure on the mechanism for that one, unfortunately.
Yeah, good wrap up there, Brian. Manly versus the Rabbitohs. Rabbitohs again leading the charge here on the casualty ward. So Euan Aitken was ruled out pre-game with a leg injury. I didn't have specific detail about that one. Sorry, Brian. Then very unfortunate news for Brandon Smith coming back from his ACL reconstruction. He's injured his knee out of this one as well, which sounds like a fairly high-grade MCL injury. Jason Saab from the Manly Seagulls been reported as an ankle injury. Then Liam LeBlanc from the Bunnies was ruled as back spasms out of this game as well, Brian. So yeah, the Bunnies again favourites on the Magic Sponge because we give them a run every week, and this week is no different, coincidentally.
Yeah, mate, they are just copying it. I even heard that Latrell failed to finish one of the training sessions at Origin this week, and I was like, oh my God, apparently he's all good, but it was like, oh man, if that happens, the poor old Bunnies, they are just, in a world of hurt. So Liam LeBlanc, back spasms, shouldn't be anything too major. Jason Saab with the ankle, he did come off. They had Tommy Talau on the bench. I just wonder whether they were that far in front. It just was a direct contact mechanism. He kind of swung around. His legs went into Turbo's legs. He just looked like he copped a really bad knock to the shins. And as I said, they had Tommy Talau on the bench. He was running back. He got the thumbs up, but they just took him off anyway. So I would hope it's nothing too crazy. Euan Aitken with the leg issue, that's all we know. Literally, I think Wayne said in the presser before the game, he hurt his leg, so he'll be out. Yeah, that I can't. Okay. I can't. And this is like, it's just crazy to me. Like the Billy Smith one too. Like I've had to like chase that up to try and so many people care, right? Like not only like SuperCoach, obviously, but like Roosters fans care because they've seen Billy Smith go through the shit. And they just want to know, like, is he okay? And the Roosters come out with, oh, Billy Smith won't play. He drops out. Like, no information whatsoever. And I'm like, you are giving, like, there's no competitive advantage to you keeping back, like, information on Billy Smith's. Like, maybe Billy Smith has said, I don't want anyone to know what this injury is. But if it's a minor knee injury, I just don't see how that's true. And then same with Euan Aitken. Like, come on. Like, anyway, that's my frustration. Move on to Brandon Smith, mate. First game back from a right knee ACL, MCL reconstruction. So if you remember, initially he had the ACL, MCL injury. They tried to brace the MCL injury to allow it to heal and then surgically reconstruct the ACL. They went in after about 4 weeks and the MCL was no good anyway. So they reconstructed both. This is the same leg. So the same leg, he's copped we'll call it a hip drop mechanism because in my book it is a hip drop, but I'll get to that in a second. The contact mechanism to the outside of the knee, his knee collapses in, MCL. Obviously, the initial assessments from Souths have got him at 6 to 8 weeks, which is probably moderate to high grade. The reason they can tell that is because of the looseness of the knee. So they'll do tests to kind of push the knee where the MCL should hold it in place, but all of a sudden it's got a fair bit of give, and that tells you, moderate to high grade. A lot of people asking, is it a hip drop? I'll tell you right now, I will be absolutely shocked if Matt Lodge gets charged because by the NRL's definition and criteria, that is not a hip drop because his body weight hit the ground first before he then hits Brandon Smith's leg. I've said since the beginning of time that while hip drop tackles are worse when the body weight directly hits it, that does not take away the danger. The danger in these tackles is the twisting and the losing of the feet, which I think was present here. So what I would say for those people who are looking for a charge, I would be absolutely shocked if he is charged because by their criteria, it does not qualify. But what I will say to you is from like a mechanics standpoint, that type of tackle has minusculely less danger. So it's relatively similar on the danger level compared to, a full-on hip drop tackle because it brings into play syndesmosis injuries, MCL injuries, and ACL injuries. Yes, but Brandon Smith, look, like my thing is the other thing, James, and I don't, question medical staff really ever for anything because they're the guys in the trenches. They have all the information, all that kind of stuff. So it's not our place to kind of question those kind of decisions. The one thing I find interesting here is that Brandon Smith said, I think it was 2 weeks ago, he was on the podcast with James Graham and he said, yeah, I'm aiming for New South Wales Cup. Round 19 was when he was aiming.
Mm-hmm.
Then all of a sudden he's back NRL, playing NRL footy in round 18. So whether he was just foxing, whether they have brought him back a bit early, I mean, this is just bad luck, obviously, but it's just one of those things. I think I was surprised to even see him play this week. And now just copped a bit of bad luck and out for 6 to 8 weeks by the sounds of things, which is a big blow to the Bunnies.
Yeah, it's a really sad one for the Bunnies. I guess the only thing to consider is, Manly are sitting in 8th at 8 wins, 8 losses, and the Bunnies are second last at 6 wins, 11 losses. So I wonder if they saw it as if we don't start piling up wins ASAP, our season's done. So maybe that was a factor in it, just where they were sort of sitting on the ladder at the moment. They do have 2 buys to come, obviously next round and then later in round 26 as well. So I think they maybe just thought if we can just squeeze this game, get into the bye, if we got one more bye up our sleeve, maybe they thought they could make a run for the finals with getting a few troops back on deck and hopefully just getting off the back of a hot Latrell Mitchell. Maybe that was the thinking. So I guess if that's the case, I can't really criticise it too much. I think it's a win and go home scenario.
I was just surprised actually on because initially they had Mamazelis there, right? Like he was named to return, and I had a few people asking what happened to Pete Mamazelis because my God, if I've copped messages on a player this season, it's PDM. He is very popular amongst someone because he was red hot this season. But he played New South Wales Cup. They dropped him down to New South Wales Cup, so it wasn't like they had like he was injured and they had. Well, that's what I've been told anyway. To be fair, I didn't check it myself. I just got message from someone in and around South, and they said, "Oh yeah, the plan is he's playing New South Wales Cup." So it wasn't like they had like dud replacements. Like Pete's a very very decent player. So it was just a surprise.
Yeah, it's a surprise, isn't it? All right, we'll wrap up that Manly versus Rabbitohs game, and then we'll go into the State of Origin stuff, Brian. So there's been a bit of scuttle about Stefano Utoikamanu nursing a calf concern. Brian To'a has been reported as an LCL injury in his knee. Sounds like it's sort of a moderate grade, at least for that. Payne Haas has been reportedly managing a back concern that's been bothering him for some time. Hudson Young was spoke to on this podcast quite a few weeks about his osteitis pubis and his groin symptoms. And then lastly, Tino from the Maroons there with the sternum concern. Sounds like he's coming out the other side of that. Just harnessing all the spirit of the 4570 postcode in Gympie there, Brian, and just leveling up into the Origin weapon that we need him to be next Wednesday night.
Mate, he's just peaking. He's peaking. He's some would say he's soaked for Origin 3, I believe. So
who isn't? Who isn't up here, honestly?
So he's peaking. His moisture. His moisture precipitation levels are at their peak for Origin 3, which is very good. So by all accounts, he did an interview this week where he was like, look, the sternum's been knocking me around since before Origin 2, which makes sense with that downturn in performance and production that we've seen from him. He did claim that he's feeling a bit better, like for the first time this week. Just leading into Origin 3. So hopefully no more aggravations and we'll see a good one from Tino. I think Tino owners, Yeah, I spoke to a few people during the week. I think it was Aman. He does like a Supercoach channel and stuff like that, especially on YouTube. He was wondering about Tino. Like I was still pro a Tino sell if you had the trades, just purely because he's still got a backup after Origin. There's a lot of guys with plenty of upside in and around that area. I don't mind jumping back on him if he starts to look like he's over that sternum injury, because, you know, guys can say things and stuff like that. But I think now if you've still got him, it sounds like, you know, greener pastures are there over the next couple of weeks. But for example, like I've traded Tino out. I've got very few trades left. He's not someone who I'm desperate to get back in at this point in time. Before I get to the other guys, mate, would you agree with that? I think you've traded him out as well.
Yeah, I traded him out when he's at his peak, and I don't really have any conviction to bring him back in as it stands right now. I think with the Titans running dead last, minutes were knocked around a little bit. I think when you look at the Titans' draw, it's not the worst, to be fair. Like, it's not a murderous row, but I just don't know what you're going to get out of that team for the next little bit. It's just a gamble I'm willing to roll with elsewhere, to be honest.
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree. And that's injury by the year, Tino. He's definitely killed it this year, but yeah, no, happy to let him go for the moment. Hudson Young still dealing with that groin, osteoitis pubis, but he should be fine for Origin 3. Stefano Utoikamanu with a calf issue. Apparently it's minor, so he should be all good. And then Brian To'o, LCL grade 2. A lot of people were surprised to hear that he was playing kind of 10, 11 days, or no, it might have been 13 days post grade 2 LCL, so partial tear of the LCL. For whatever reason, we've seen a lot of guys come back quickly from isolated LCL injuries. So I've even got a case of a complete LCL rupture coming back in about 2.5, 3 weeks. Previously in like field sport, professional sport, that kind of thing. So yeah, we do see guys come back pretty quickly. Once you deal with the PLC, which is the posterolateral corner, that tends to extend things out pretty significantly. And it's not to say the LCL can't be tricky. I've had a few athletes over my time where, you know, it can just linger around, have like instability issues and those kind of things. So it can be tricky, but especially at the NRL level, for all intents and purposes, we see guys come back really quickly from LCL injuries time and time again. So that's what we're going to see here more than likely by the sounds of things. Payne Haas is probably the big talking point, not only for Origin, but then kind of rest of season, because I think a lot of people have been messaging me during the week, you know, a cortisone injury into his back. How concerning is this? So look, I think a lot of people have been asking what could it possibly be. I think at this point, you and I were talking off air, it probably has to be a discogenic or like a disc problem in his back to be at this point in time getting cortisone injections, those kind of things. I think overall, the minorly concerning thing for me is it's obviously not getting any better. Like it's something where like he's had to manage it for weeks and weeks and weeks. It's been causing referred pain down into his quad, into his groin, those kind of things. So for anybody who's dealt with like sciatica kind of symptoms over the time, that referred pain from your back down into your leg. And then it's gotten to the point where like he backed up from Origin 2 and had that mega game. He scored like 100 Supercoach points. And then he played last week and scored like 40. Like, you know, didn't play, like was obviously, so it's obviously gotten to a point where it is, you know, he's struggling with it now. I've had a few, and you've certainly seen a few where these cortisone injections, particularly epidural into the cord, seem to respond pretty well. But I just think my overall kind of feeling with Payne is that he's going to be a bit of a week-to-week proposition in that his performance could be through the roof if he doesn't aggravate his back for that particular week. But then there's going to be weeks probably where he has a little bit of referred pain, aggravates it a little bit, and has to, you know, take a back seat at times. I think from a Supercoach perspective, the way that I am looking at it is that he's definitely in my team because he's still got the capacity to score those 100-point games. But I just don't think he's really going to be on the table for me for, say, a VC or a C, so a vice captaincy or a captaincy moving forward, just because of the unpredictability. Like he could go 1 week and score 40 because he aggravates his back as he did last week, even with this cortisone injection. Am I overreacting too much there, James? Are you kind of on the same page? Where are you at with Payne?
It's really good intel there, Brian, for people playing along at home. I think you just cannot rely on Payne Haas from a captaincy option particularly, because it could just take one run, one tackle, one impact mechanism, and that could, really, really limit him within a game. So I think if you've got him, you definitely hold him, and if you don't have him, you probably look to bring him in because his ceiling is so high, and the offload game's so good this year. So I don't think you can go wrong. But I just don't think you want to do the VC and the C stuff on Payne as it stands for the run home, unless things look better in a few weeks' time. That would be the only other thing.
Yep, completely agree, mate.
Yeah, nice one, Brian. All right, we'll wrap up with the NRLW injuries here, Brian. So a few names on the list: Julia Robinson with the nose concern, Filomina Hanisi with a knee injury, Brittany Breayley Nati with a collarbone injury, Destiny Sinapati with an ankle injury, and then Taniela Todd Hunter with a shoulder concern, Brian, here. Who do you want to speak to in more detail from the W? Good to see the W back, by the way, before we launch in.
Mate, the W's back. How good.
W's
I
back.
got
It's
around a
good.
couple of games over the
Mate,
weekend.
there were some good highlights as well. I was getting well around it.
Mate, and the girls are so much better at try celebrations than the guys. So much better.
Yeah.
Now, I'm
without
sorry,
question.
like PC be damned, mate. The milking the cow one is amazing. Like from the
It's
Raiders,
epic.
like so
It's
good,
epic.
especially
Like,
because
the
it's
milk
milk.
from the
Yeah,
Raiders, it's the best.
so good.
Like, if people don't find that just god tier, then skip me. Honestly, just take me off your Christmas card list because you suck if you don't get
Yeah.
around that. It was unbelievable. I
Although
was sick
I'm
on.
not going to lie, mate, it's good to have the W back, but I found myself just going to NRL.com match center and just scrolling down the fantasy scores for the week. It kind of hurt me. We had a couple who we were talking about in the preseason. We're like, oh, we think this player might be good, and they all scored really well because we're experts, you know. And I'm like, oh, damn it, we would have done. I'm telling you, we would have won the mixer this year if it was back, mate.
Yeah, it would have been our year. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. It would have been our year, like the last 3
Would have
years.
been, yeah, that's right. Would have been our year, but anyway, Julia Robinson nose injury, just a HIA. They maybe a broken nose, but you're not going to see much time missed for that. Brittany Breayley Nati, potential collarbone fracture. So if that's the case, at least a month, potentially 2 months, depending on how bad it is. Destiny Sinapati looked like a syndesmosis injury mechanism, potentially even a fibula fracture there as well. So she'll have to go for scans on that. Tanika Todd Hunter, she was apparently okay to come back, but yeah, I didn't see the mechanism specifically. She looked like she was iced up pretty heavily on the sideline. And then, Hanisi with the knee, mate. That was a brutal mechanism. You saw that shift below the knee, ACL more than likely. So, yeah, just thoughts go out to her. Hopefully, outside of that one, the other ones aren't too bad. But, just good to have the W back. And I'm keen for more moving forward.
Yep, here, Brian. Let's move on to the questions then. So thank you for everyone for getting these through the broadcast channel, as we always do. Question number 1 is about Kalen Ponga. This person's got Kalen Ponga in their draft league. Is his season definitely over, or should I drop him from my draft league team?
Mate, as good as the Arthrex tightrope is in these list rank injuries, very, very likely that his season is over. Best case scenario, we've seen guys come back in 9 weeks. So what's that? Round 17 to 25, 26. I just, unless the Knights are there and about, maybe you get a week or 2 out of him there. But yeah, it's just not looking great at this point. So I think unless you've got like a round 27 grand final, I think he's droppable at this point. What about you, mate?
Yeah, I would be moving on to a different player. I think the Knights, without Kalen Ponga, are probably teetering as well. I know on the ladder they're not far out of the 8. They're only a couple of wins outside of the 8. Like they're 6 and 10, but without Kalen Ponga and missing a few other players around that, I don't think their season's looking very good. So I'd be moving to someone different at the fullback position. Question number 2, Brian, is about does this headgear company that you posted about during the week have any new evidence available? Because their claim about a 98% reduction of concussion risk was posited by then, but do we have any more science or nerdy data that says that that is legit or not?
Mate, the headgear is back again. For anybody who missed it on Instagram or Twitter, I think it was the Panthers Juniors posted about they've got a new headgear sponsor who is claiming 98% reduction of relative concussion risk. And I think the relative word is doing a lot of heavy lifting. And I think also up to 98% reduction is also doing a lot of heavy lifting. The one thing I will say here is that I went to their website because I'm always interested in this stuff. I never I think the big thing, and it always comes out that I'm like anti-headgear. And what I want to say is I'm not anti-headgear. I'm anti-companies selling headgear under the guise that it helps with concussion, because I love headgear. I think every kid should be wearing headgear, but they should be wearing headgear under the knowledge that it doesn't help with concussion. It just helps with surface wounds. Like I was even speaking to someone over the weekend. I'm like, either of my girls play footy, they will both be in headgear. So I went to this company's website and they literally have a tab called The Science, James, The Science. So I was like, right, I'm clicking on the tab. I'm into it. There is nothing like it just said, we have done research and it decreases risk by 98%. Like our testing shows. And I'm like, what? Like you just can't do. Like I'm all for, give me the evidence, give it to me, give me the papers, tell me, don't just put it there. Because, and the big thing is, and where I go with this is because it seems like where they said the research out of, I think it was like a university somewhere in the States, right? And we have just seen time and time again that headgear, helmets, all of these things are really good at lab testing, reducing the amount of force that goes through these hits, right? They cushion force really well. But then as soon as those things are then put into the field, so in real life, so out of a lab into the field, they just don't reduce concussion risk for whatever reason. And as we've spoken about in the past, we think it's the rotational forces and the brain moving inside the skull, that it does nothing to stop that. So that's what causes a lot of concussions. But yeah, like I just think, again, this relative 98% reduction of relative concussion risk, just advertise it as 98% reduction in forces on the head. I'd even be okay with that. But we have seen time and time again that it just does not correlate to on the field, reducing risk of concussion. I'm yet to see it anyway. If anybody has anything, send it to me because I'll be happy. I think one of the headgear companies has got like a 2-year study coming out in October that I know of, where they've done like on the field testing. Now, I'm always a bit dubious about studies funded by headgear companies, James, as we all should be, studies funded by any companies. You've always got to be a little bit about, but a 2-year study, I'm really looking forward to that because it might come back with something positive and I'll be happy. But for the moment, this 98, oh man, I was filthy about that because a really good conversation, and this is probably over exaggerating a little bit, but I was speaking to a neurosurgeon and he was saying it's like advertising that wearing seat belts helps reduce cancer risk. And I was like, what the hell do you mean by that? And he said, because we all know that seatbelts help with, protecting you during accidents, right? But if you sell seatbelts as they help reduce cancer risk, then people are like, great, this is awesome. I'm going to start wearing my seatbelt all the time. And the risk is that all of a sudden people stop wearing sunscreen because they're like, well, I'm at a reduced risk of cancer because I'm wearing my seatbelt every day. So I don't need to put on sunscreen. I can take up smoking because I'm wearing my seatbelt every day. So it reduces my risk. And it's something where if you advertise a product as like diminishing the risk of something that it doesn't do, the flow on effects of that. And that's always my point that I come up with this is if parents or clubs or whatever, junior clubs, just put all their kids in headgear and go, great, all their kids are in headgear, we're fine. And they don't focus on proper concussion management, proper time out of the game, proper identification processes, good tackle technique, or like teaching good tackle technique, all of those things, because they're like, well, my kid's in headgear, it will be sweet. That's where your problem is. So yeah. Headgear rant over, James. Another one.
Yeah, all good, mate. I think you've ticked all the boxes there. The only thing that came into my brain there, just because I'm a sicko for this sort of stuff, was this is right in our elder millennial wheelhouse as well, was power bands. Do you remember when people had power bands for like your strength or balance thing? And it was like, yep, it's been tested in studies. This stuff lines up. It does well. So if you're going to claim these things, you do need to be able to back them up, because otherwise the TGA will be breathing down your neck. So it's the same with any company, right? If any company advertises, oh, we do this without any real scientific backing, then that's sort of misleading for people too. So it's just one of those things to keep in mind for those people playing at home. Brian, next question. This is a good question. I'm keen to rip into this one. Tom Trbojevic looked like he was on both sides of the ruck tonight. He was, can confirm that. Any interest in him for Supercoach purposes, or has he burned us too many times? I've traded Tom in and out 3 times already, Brian. Am I going to go a fourth? What do you reckon? Talk me
Mate,
into it.
I'm not.
I'll listen,
You
'cause I'll
take the
listen.
floor. Take the
No,
floor with this.
I will listen to any advancements, because one of the commandments that we live by on this podcast is, if Tom Trbojevic is healthy, he should be playing in your Supercoach team. I have tried that a couple of times, hasn't worked out for me yet. But am I just like the meme where the guy's digging for gold and you just got to dig one more time and you hit the jackpot? Am I just that close to getting Tom back in my team, Brian? What do you think?
Mate, I think against an injury-ridden, origin-depleted South side, I just don't know if that is enough for me to get back on the turbo train. If he comes back and looks good post-bye, which is next week, I'm really looking for, and we'll talk about the run home challenge in a second with the Baller boys. I'm looking for someone to shoot me to the top of that run home challenge, because I could really do with a couple of grand just to finish off my year. And Tom Turbo might be that guy. But yeah, at the moment, mate, like even though he looked okay tonight, there were still times where I was like, oh, he just looks a little bit hesitant there into contact. So, and yeah, it's just the ever-present injury risk for me, mate. I even had someone message me, actually, on that note. It's literally just popped in my head. I can't believe I didn't mention this to you pre-show. Someone messaged me, he's like, I'm at the ground when Tolu Kohler scored that last try. Tom was crouched down behind the play, like feeling at his knee or something like that. And I'm like, this can't be real. And he's like, no, legit. He's like, oh, have you heard anything? And I'm like, I haven't heard anything. But so it's just, mate, it's just always present. I'll throw it back to you and you can make the final call. But I just think scoring 100 against that South side at the moment, probably not enough, unless their draw. I think their draw's not too bad. But
no, it's actually terrible,
Oh,
to
is
be
it?
honest.
Right.
I'm just looking at now.
Yeah.
So run into Storm away, Bulldogs away, Roosters home, Raiders away, Tigers away, Finns at home. But that's a tough matchup. They're not going to beat the Finns, Brian, the way they're going. Far out. And then they play Dragons, Warriors. They've got a really terrible draw, especially if you just look at Storm, Bulldogs, Roosters, Raiders. They might drop all 4 of those games, foreseeably. So, I don't think it's a go from that point of view. Although I love the aesthetic and I love the vibe, and we always talk about it. And I don't want to be the dude that misses out on him going Troppo, but I don't think it's going to be my play as it stands at the moment. I might look somewhere else as it stands, Brian. It hurts me to say that, but I tried it mid-year. It didn't really work out for me very well at all. So I'm happy to see Tom's going well and he's playing good footy. I'll just enjoy the ride without being a rosterer. That's what I'll do from here on out, mate. Question number 4, Brian, does there need to be an investigation into how Penrith have an ability to avoid major injuries? There's massive credit to them from this question, but it feels like they haven't had any major things in like 5 years. And it's probably pretty true, Brian, I guess, when you've looked at crunched the numbers and looked at the stats. They've always done exceptionally well. There was a time where they weren't doing so well, which I think was almost pre-Cleary coming back, wasn't it? I think was when there was a little run there where they had quite a lot of injuries there, but there's probably a few things to go into it there, Brian. What do you want to talk to in more detail?
Yeah, mate, I think full credit to their S&C and physio team, number one. That does make a difference. And so they've obviously figured out what they need to do to keep their guys as injury-free as possible. So, and I think they consistently show that time and time again. So that has to stick out. I think number 2, Penrith have just had such a young squad. Like, I think like you look at Souths this year, like there's a lot of injuries there, but mate, like 6 of them are Cody Walker, like just suffering injury after injury at 30, 35, 36.
Yeah,
like they've just got an older squad. Like Penrith have just had such a young squad over the last 4 or 5 years. I think that goes to it quite significantly as well. And then I think with Penrith, they've had quite a few significant injuries where they've been able to delay surgeries to postseason. So we had the Cleary, Luai with their shoulder issues. We had Dylan Edwards playing through a friggin' fractured foot that year. Like, they're these kind of things where not only have Penrith been good at preventing these injuries, they've been working some wizardry, like getting guys to play through certain things that other times they might not. So there's a few components there, but I think the big one is the youth of the squad. I think they've had such a young and upcoming squad that I think that really helps injury wise. You add into that good S&C and physio work as well, and good coaching, all those kind of things. They're just at the top of the game in so many different components. You don't win 4 in a row. I think that's a massive thing I always come back to. Like, you win 4 in a row, or you win one premiership, right? And it might be because you've got a shit hot team. But you've got to have other things under control as well, whether it's the footballing department, strength and conditioning, physio, medical, all that kind of stuff. You need to be on top of so many different components. And so Penrith are the best in the game, or have been in the best of the game in the last 5 years. So as you say, I mean, the questioner said full credit to them, and I agree.
Yeah, totally agree as well. Probably, I don't know whether it lines up with their centre of excellence as well. So when they get these younger players in through the pathways at a young age, and this is where I think, if you take a bigger view out of NRL in total, even across men and women here, I think this is where NRL is sort of leading the charge here, where they can get guys into systems, reasonably young, get them into elite training relatively young, get them into strength and conditioning relatively young. And I think all these guys that have ascended to the top grade from Penrith have come through their pathway. So they're probably being trained at, okay, well, this is the intensity you need to hit at NRL level. This is what we expect to reserve grade. This is what we expect to XG ball. So they're really, really, really entrenched. And that's why they've got, routinely outside backs who do the most yardage out of any team in the comp. It's just no coincidence. So even Isaiah Yongi goes to the Eels, and what do you know? He's an absolute jet. It's just ingrained in these guys from a young age. It's trained into them. It's repetition, it's volume, it's high quality competition, it's high quality coaching as well. So I think Centre of Excellence got a lot to say here. And that's where I always say to people, if there's just that financial investment into the women's game, you will see this as well through the women's sport. And I think NRL's got a massive opportunity in that space. And I think if anyone's there saying, oh, well, the women's game isn't profitable, just skip me with that. NRL's got plenty of money to throw around. They could make, foreseeably a loss investing into women's elite strength and conditioning pathways. And the game would be enormously better for it. I think you could make a massive argument for that. So I think it goes into those sort of things as well, mate, for sure. Question number 5, Brian, is this person's held Hame Sele for this long. Do you think he's worth holding through the bye period, or is his re-injury risk too high coming back from the shoulder injury?
Yeah, I think if you need the player next week, I would do it. And also if you don't have like an unhealthy option to trade and you want to, upgrade to a CTW or a 2RF, who's coming back and who's an out and out gun, I would do it. But especially with that draw that you just named for Manly, he's got the bye next week, then a really rough run. He's got the re-injury risk on top. He's a miss for me. Unless your team is absolutely stacked and you want a bit of a point of difference, which he probably is at this point in time. He did have, I think it was Tigers and Dragons, you said, at the back end. So maybe you hold him through for that. But he's not someone who I'd be desperate to hold on to. What about you, mate?
Yeah, I'd be looking to sell personally. I think you got better options there at second row or centre, depending on how your team's set up. So that'd be my play there, Brian. Next question's about a few updates for Ben Hunt, Morweni Hiroti, and Matty Nicholson there, Brian. I thought Ben Hunt was sort of pegged around round 18 or round 19, but where he fits in for the Broncos will be a very interesting conversation at the moment, because Ezra Mam's been playing really good footy. And obviously the Pakes, Billy Walters combo has been working reasonably well at the moment, with Pakes playing bigger minutes, Brian, dare I say.
Mate, just wanted to get on top of a few players here who I get a million questions about every week. So Hunty is at end stage rehab for his hemi. As we spoke about at the time, we would have been he apparently tore the hamstring off the bone, and they said 4 to 6 weeks, and that just would have been very, very quick, particularly with re-injury risk of hammies. So he's right at end stage. He just didn't quite get up for this week. So I'm expecting in the next 1 to 2 weeks for Ben Hunt. I would say he goes to 9, mate. I don't think he goes back to 6. Ezra is looking way too good at 6. And then the other two, I haven't heard anything. So Hiroti and Matty Nicholson, I'd love to tell you more, but clubs are just crap at giving injury updates, unfortunately. And I don't have connections at every club. So I would you agree, Hunty to 9, mate?
Yeah, I would. I think if the Broncos are going to make a deep run, then I think him at 9 was probably the best setup there, unless he plays 14 and then he doesn't have to play as big a minutes. He can come on and sort of play the 9 role, or if there's an injury in the halves, he can slot in there as well. Adam Reynolds is getting up there in age, and he's always had an injury or two in the last few years as well. So I think maybe at 14 would be his best spot to play. I'd be pretty happy with him there, because then you can keep Pakes at 9 and you can sub off Billy Walters to Queensland Cup, and you can sub in Hunty would be the ideal setup in my mind. So last question here, Brian, is why don't we see many ACL injuries in tennis? Because from what I understand, AstroTurf increases the ACL injury risk, where tennis surfaces are generally really hard. So tennis is very demanding in terms of stop, start, and change of direction. But why don't we see many ACL injuries in tennis as such?
Yeah, I think probably the best way to describe this is if tennis players played tennis in footy boots, that we probably would see quite a few more. It's just the interaction between the shoe and the surface, in that even on hard courts, there's just that little bit of give. Like we see it probably over exaggerated with like a Novak Djokovic who slides on hard court, which is pretty mental. But it's just with the studs in footy boots, you plant and to change direction, and your foot does not move. So you are not absorbed. That none of that force is being absorbed by like a slide or a give. It is all being sent up the leg. So here in tennis, even when you plant and you move, there is a bit of slide of your shoe, especially on something like grass or clay, less so on hard court, but there still is that little bit of slide. You have that slide across. So not as much force is going up through the leg. So that would be my main one. There are different demands, obviously, and probably with tennis, it's a bit more planned in terms of you're a bit more in control of your body, whereas in footy you're going into contact and you got to worry about those things, whereas tennis you're almost completely in control of what you're doing, which is a little bit less risky for those kind of things. But yeah, I think it's mainly the interaction between the shoe and the surface in terms of the amount of friction and the amount of give there. What are your thoughts there, James? Have I missed anything?
Yeah, it's all really good summary. I think the only thing in tennis is you're very rarely getting to 100% speed, I suppose you could say. Like, you're really in short, sharp bursts, but what would be the biggest, hardest effort you'd run there at one time, Brian? Maybe 30 meters? Would that be a fair
Yeah.
shout? Like maybe 30. So you might be at full tilt, but maybe not quite. I guess that's the other thing with leagues. Sometimes there's, you're at a higher clip there, and then there's the obviously the contact factor as well there. So that'd be another thing I'd say, is maybe that's a factor with it too.
Yep, I like it, mate. All right, let's get into SuperCoach Corner, but we have to mention what we are mainly aiming for now, because our SuperCoach sides are not going fantastically. We're going okay, but not fantastically. So our main aim at the moment is to win the SC Ballers Run Home Challenge. So if your SuperCoach season has fallen apart, don't check out just yet, because Baller has launched the Run Home Challenge, has $7,000 in cash prizes, including $3,000 for the winner, and pays all the way down to 10th. It's free to enter. It's your second chance to win big, and it's live right now. So just head over to baller.live and follow the link on the homepage to join the challenge. There's no stress, no hoops. It's as easy as that. So no credit card input, nothing down that path. It's literally just a SuperCoach league that runs between round 20 and 27, the highest scorers in that time. I think they've even got like merch and little prize drops for like weekly scorers as well. So it's not just the season end stuff. It's all throughout the last 7 weeks as well, which I think is a real gap in the market. Like at the moment we're kind of, not doing the best, you get a bit of waning interest. This is just going to supercharge me, mate. I'm in. We're missing out on NRLW fantasy, so I am all in on the Run Home Challenge. So it's at baller.live. That's BALLR.live. Your run home starts now. Are you ready to be a baller, James? Hit me with your trades and what you're going to do to try and win the Baller Run Home Challenge, my friend.
Good shout, Brian. Let's go into what happened to me this week. So I don't have many good news stories out of this week either. It seems to be a recurring theme for my season this year. So that's where I'll be gearing up for the Run Home Challenge. 9:28 this week, Captain Tedesco. I went 3 trades this week, Brian, because I don't have any discipline and my team isn't very good. So I was like, when I saw Papenhuyzen out and Billy Smith out, I was like, you know what? I need to trade. I needed to make some trades to give myself some feel-good factor. So what I did this week, I traded out Christian Tuipulotu, I traded out Billy Smith, and I traded out Laurent Patea, traded in Kane Bradley, traded in a week earlier Ronaldo Mulitalo and Jaden Sewer. So I went Mulitalo and Jaden Sewer as big time pods. Jaden Sewer is going to play the rest of the games as it stands at the moment, and Mulitalo gets a really tasty draw upcoming with the Sharks, who don't have. Actually, they have a round 25 bye for the rest of the year. My apologies. So I guess if you're thinking about the Run Home Challenge from round 20 onwards, so the teams that have the bye from round 20 onwards, Broncos round 20, Dolphins round 21, Newcastle round 22, Tigers round 23, Canberra round 24, Cronulla round 25, South round 26, and North Queensland round 27. So with any players from those teams, you're probably going to miss, you're going to miss one round in that final sort of run there. So you probably want to try and construct your team around those teams as best you can to avoid them in any way, shape, or form. Obviously, there's some guys that have the apex ceiling, and they're probably guys you can't pass up. But I think if you wanted to get a little strategic advantage, if you avoid, Broncos, Dolphins, Newcastle, West Tigers, Canberra, Cronulla, Souths, or also the Cowboys, then that would be a reasonable way to set things up. When I look at that, I really, really, really get keen for a Zach Lomax, or maybe even some missionary sex with Isaiah Yeo again. Dare I say, I know we said it last year, Brian, and we said, do we do missionary with Isaiah, or do we go reverse cowgirl with Val? Maybe, just maybe, I need to have that conversation with myself again. Do I want reliable missionary with Isaiah at 530 grand, or do I want to hit reverse cowgirl with Val Holmes for the run home after Origin? Val's priced in at, I think he's about 680, isn't he, Brian? Sorry, I'll just quickly check that on Val Holmes while I'm going here, but they're probably the way I want to sort of set things up at the moment for this week upcoming, but just with, round 20 and onwards in mind. Both those guys play the rest of the games as they are. So Val's at 695 and Isaiah Yeo's at 530. And I think Isaiah's probably been a bit unders, but I think as soon as he comes out from Origin, I think the Panthers are really worth owning. I might even link Cleary into the flex position for Papenhuyzen as well. So I might just run Tedesco and Drinkwater and maybe just go Cleary, Nico, and Jerome Hughes in 7-7 and flex would be the other setup as well, just to get a bit weird and a bit vibey there as well. Because I think a lot of people run 2-7s, but they might not run that through the flex. But I don't think running Cleary through the flex is a bad shout. And I think Hughes and Nico, we know their ceilings. They've both got good draws coming up. Neither of them have any buys apart from Cronulla on round 20. What did I say? Round 25 there. So I think you could make a play for Nathan Cleary as opposed to Papenhuyzen even would be not a bad one. Or if you wanted to move Tedesco or Drinkwater, I could hear that conversation as well. Probably something to keep in mind. What do you want to do, Brian? Because I guess you scored really well this week, Brian, but we've got run home considerations in mind as well when we're talking about Supercoach moving forward.
Yeah, mate, like run home challenge, but also like, us, right? We're trade fiends. So it's going to take a lot for me to not use my trades. Look, the biggest thing, just rolling off the back of what you said, I think the more I look at it, I'll get to my team in a minute. There's a lot of chat about, because the decision of who to trade to Cleary out of Hughes and Hines is a bit difficult. There's some chatter around maybe I'll miss Cleary, and I just am not around that at all. And for the biggest reason, and what I've come to the conclusion of at the moment is I'm probably going to trade Hughes for a couple of things. I think number one, I can see Melbourne definitely being resting, having a resting policy sometime over the next 6 weeks, number one. And number two, I could never confidently captain Jerome Hughes. I just look at that at the moment, even if he's shit hot, like last year, for example, when he was killing it, there were never any weeks where I was like, I think Jerome Hughes is he's my captain option. Whereas, and what I'll say is that, yes, I understand Nico hasn't been fantastic lately, but with their draw, if he goes 2 or 3 weeks where he absolutely kills it and he's doing really well, he all of a sudden becomes a captaincy option for me, or a vice captaincy option on those like weeks. Sorry, on the easy weeks. Whereas like for a Hughes, I'm like, even if they're playing a shit team, they played a shit team on the weekend. There's just so many cooks, right? Like it could be Munster, it could be Paps. You don't know who it could be. Whereas I feel like if Hines hits a purple patch, I could definitely see myself VC or see him over the next 7 weeks. And Cleary, mate, like they've got some chalk matchups. Like they've got some pretty tough ones as well. But we know with Cleary, like there are just weeks where I'm going to want to have the VC or the C on Cleary. So I just can't see how you would skip him at this point in time. And for me personally, I just think Hughes is the obvious option for that reason, because I'm chasing. Like I'm not looking to consolidate. I'm looking to chase. And so I want someone to strike gold. And I think someone like a Hines, and I know we're massive Hines apologists on this show, don't get me wrong, but Hines is someone who can be the highest average in Supercoach, whereas I don't know if Jerome Hughes has got that in him over the next 6 or 7 weeks. How do you feel about that little rant, James, before I move on? If you're like, I like your idea. I think your idea of running all three is fine as well. But I think if you are looking to go 2, I just think if you're trying to make up ground, you got to go Hines and Cleary for me.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I think if I had to move one, it'd be Jerome Hughes as it stands at the moment, because I think Nico's draw is just way too good, Brian. Like Jerome gives you an extra week, but I think most people have pretty good squads where they could cover that 1 week that the Sharks have the bye. But I really want to get a piece of Nathan Cleary as well. You know, he's not overpriced. I like, it's always hard with Nathan Cleary. Sometimes he sits in the 9s or the nearly 1 millions. Is at 744. So that's doable. He's not a long way away if you need to get to him from someone there. I guess in terms of his percentage owned, he's 32% owned. I thought that'd be a bit lower, to be honest. But, you know, there's really, when you look at that position, you probably want to have him where people that don't have him could really, really miss out. And the ceiling on him is just so big, isn't it? And, you know, when the Panthers are humming, he's always in amongst it. He's really the go-to guy there on that team. Although, you know, Blaze Taulungi's had a great season, and, you know, Dylan Edwards has his weeks, but I think Nath could be in for a big run home in a bit of prove it, especially, dare I say, Brian, if they don't get home in Origin. If they lose game 3, dare I say, then they will be steaming, and I think the Panthers will be like, well, we got to get in FU mode and get some wins here for the run home. So that might be even better.
I think the only downside to Cleary is potentially he doesn't goal kick for another couple of weeks. So he's someone who I'm probably not going to bring in next week unless, you know, and I'll talk about it in a second. But yeah, that's probably the only other thing, is maybe he has another week or 2 off the kicking. But that's something to keep an eye out for. This week I went, I got 1,001. So I've got 1,023 on the run sheet there, but I just checked, mate. I've down dated. Since when do you down date? Like, that's horrible. I'm like, come on. So I've just ticked over the 1,000 button. I went double downgrade this week, though. So I brought in Kane Bradley, and I went a bit left field with Talon De Silva at the Eels, just because I think Hooker's shit, and I just went for somebody who's low. And look, if he strikes gold, fantastic. If he's a bench guy who scores 15, then whatever. Because my chat about auto emergencies last week, I had a few people message me, a few comments on the YouTube too, letting us know that, yeah, it's just not as big a deal this time, because your auto emergency or that person who comes in more than likely drops out anyway. So I'm not too stressed. And I brought in Mark Nwangani-Tawase, so I'm pretty happy with that at the moment. I got 5 trades left, so scraping the bottom of the barrel, but I got 547K in the bank. So my idea was to make those 3 trades, and now I've got 3 trades left in my mind that can all be funded by that 547. So I want Connor Watson. I've chosen him over Harry Grant at this point in time, just because I think the Roosters are going to have more to play for and less likely that he gets a rest. Jacob Kiraz and Nathan Cleary. So I've just got to figure out which 2 to do this week. I'm leaning towards Watson and Kiraz if Kiraz doesn't play Origin, but I'll just sort of see how Cleary's going after Origin and make a call there. Mate, the one that is a bit left field. Well, it's not really left field because it's Latrell, mate. Like, he's the one. If I've got 2 trades left, and like, say I do Watson, Kiraz this week, and then I do Cleary the week after, and let's say like Trell's looking good, Maybe Pappy's still dealing with a calf. I've got to win this run home challenge, mate. I'm bringing in Latrell 100. I might even do it next week. Well, I won't do it next week, but I might do it the week after. Just his first game back, roll in and just ride Latrell to the finish line. The only thing is he's got a buy in there somewhere, but yeah, the vibes around Latrell over the next 6 to 7 weeks, I don't mind it.
Yeah, I don't mind it either. Like, it's not a bad draw either, just quietly. Like, we've got Penrith round 20, Sharks, Broncos, Gold Coast, Para, St. George, Roosters. But there is a bye round 26. So you do lose out 1 week there, but it's a pretty good run. Like, even the Roosters in that final week, weird shit always happens in that matchup, as we've seen over the last few years for the final match of the round there. But yeah, I wouldn't push back against it there, Brian. I think the most recent average for Latrell there is going along okay. I think what's the 3 round there? Oh, it's 75. Okay, so that's pretty good for his last 3 games. And he just looks like he's found a little bit of nick, doesn't it, from round 13 onwards? I think he was sort of starting off in the centres and it was all a bit not so great because he started 866 this year in terms of price, and no one had him in to start the season, obviously, because he was missing. And then more recently, where are we at? 644. So he's not really very expensive either. So you're not taking a big plunge there. I don't mind the play for Latrell at all. I mean, if there was one guy who summed up rugby league vibe, it's Latrell Mitchell. Like even if we just mentioned that 2-point field goal against the Broncos, like as a Broncos fan, I was like destroyed. But all of me was just like, fuck, that is just so good. Like, that's just so elite. Like, in the wet, for the win, just drills it, doesn't even celebrate, just turns around and jogs back. I was like, that's the coldest moment in footy this year for mine as it stands. I'm sure there might be another one as it goes. But, mate, that was just box office. If you don't have Latrell and you're not about him, then, yeah, skip me with it. But he's so good, Brian. I would never push back on anyone owning Latrell. I would never.
And mate, like if Latrell is the reason that it leads me to winning the $7,000 of the run home challenge, like sign me up. So
Yeah.
like I love Drinky, I love Teddy, I love Paps, but oh man, I just think the vibes around Latrell. So I reckon that might be a little sneaky left field play heading into round 20 because he's got to buy round 19 and the run home challenge starts in round 20. So I might even do it for the content, mate. Just, to stir it up, just bring him in. It's my last trade, or it'd be my second last trade to bring him in, but whatever. Just ride the run home challenge with a really deep squad and 1 trade left. That might be the play.
Yeah. That's the ticket. I rate that highly. I really, really rate that. The other thing is you could go like, if you went Dylan Edwards and Latrell, you could just do like the ultimate complementary team to each other. Just like ultra consistent, ultra high work rate, and then just ultra just vibe, like just moment guy. Like you just had the best combination there. I think Dylan Edwards and Latrell are just the ultimate yin and yang. That might be the perfect formula for your fullback spots for the way home, or for the run home, I should say. I'm looking at that really closely, especially if Nathan Cleave's not kicking for a few weeks, because Dylan Edwards he kicked last game in round 17, and if he's adding a few points on there, as we saw last year, he can stack them up, Dylan Edwards. He's got that, that really big week in him as well. So might be one to look at.
Mate, what I'm hearing from you there is you wanna bring in Missionary and you wanna also bring in the Flying Lotus at the same time.
Do I what? Oh my god!
You go straight from Missionary over to the Kama Sutra, mate. That's
right.
That's what I'm hearing. that's
I'm
pretty
going
much
straight,
what those two guys are.
Yeah, that's right. It's basically like going from missionary to a dog collar. It's just like I'm just like getting absolutely hosed and taken full on worth there. It would be unbelievable scenes.
I love it.
Well, not a bad setup. I'm actually going to figure out how I can possibly do that, because the more I talk about it, the more I actually secretly like it. Because I do have a boost left, Brian. So I kind of want to boost in this week, and whether I boost out Paps and boost in, 1 or 2 of those guys, maybe that's the play.
For the run home challenge, I reckon that's we've got to do something.
Yeah,
so I like it.
Around. I'll rate it.
Like it a lot. All right, guys, that is a wrap for this week. As always, give the pod a review or recommend to a friend if you like what we do. Otherwise, hopefully the Maroons get up this Wednesday night. James, quickly, what's your tip and man of the Wally Lewis medal, man of the series?
Yeah, so let's tip Queensland home. Let's go by a point. Let's go Cam Munster, man of the match, and the Wally Lewis, because, obviously a lot going on for Cam Munster at the moment. But if there's anyone that's going to step up in a big game, it's going to be him. And maybe this is just another famous sporting moment that he can etch his name in and cement himself as one of the all-timers for Queensland, would be my call. Yourself, Brian, what do you think is going to happen?
I think the Wally Lewis medal, it's always like narrative driven as well. And I think the Munster thing, if he comes out and absolutely brains it on Wednesday, I think he's a pretty short priced favourite. So I'll be going Queensland. Let's go by 4 and Cam to win man of the series. So yeah, fingers crossed. Hopefully it goes well. But otherwise, everyone, you know why you're here, to finish off up the mighty, mighty Redcliffe Dolphins.